Hi everyone, welcome back. This is Professor Hall, and today we are going to talk about annotated bibliographies. So here it says APA citation. We're going to focus on MLA citation, but it's a citation plus an annotation, and that leads us to an annotated bibliography. So let's get started. First, breaking down this term, what is a bibliography? When you break down the word bibliography, biblio means book and graphia means writing. So a bibliography is a written list of all the books and other sources that are used in a scholarly work, like a research study, article, or a research study, an article, or a book. So you would have things like this: the bibliographic citation, the bibliographic information, the author's name, the title, organization, the date, and the URL. Those are some of the things that might be involved in that bibliographic citation. So is it different than a works cited page? I forgot I used this picture. It's different from a works cited page. Your list of references in a bibliography, the works cited page is only contains the works that an author cited in the text of their essay. So we talked before about in-text citations. Everything that you use in the in-text citation would have an entry on the works cited page. A bibliography, or a reference list, is a little bit different. It's all of the sources that an author consulted or looked at. So that's why I have here, these are the ones that he's taken home to be in his paper. These are the other ones he looked at that he tossed away. Both the things that you choose to use and the things that you decide not to use would be in your bibliography. Annotations. This is someone annotating what looks like a textbook, and you can see they're taking notes, and that's basically what it is. An annotation is a note or comment about a text. So an annotated bibliography is essentially a document that lists the sources, has that citation that we just talked about, and then gives a few notes about each one. And notes would be different depending on what your instructor has assigned. This is a presentation I have for a couple different classes where we do different things depending on the course. So notes could include an author's purpose, tone, audience. It might include a short summary of the source. Typically, I ask for a fact or statistic or quote that you want to use in your essay. And then sometimes it'll have a note about where you want to use the source in your essay. So what you want to support, a reason or a main idea, where you want to support a reason or a main idea. Other times, an annotation might be an analysis of the work. So this happens more for upper level classes. You'll compile an annotated bibliography of, say, 30 different sources, and then you'll analyze each one, and then you'll decide of those 30, which maybe 10 are you actually going to use. So which ones are going to be the best things for your project to use, but you're still showing your instructor all the research that you did. So whether or not you decided to actually use it in your paper. So why would you, sorry. So here is an example. This is a sample entry from an annotated bibliography. So we see here the citation, again, that bibliographic citation information that would be on your works cited page later on. The author's name, the title of the article, the title of the publication where the article is found, the database, and then the date. And then a little annotation. What it's about, book or reports on, the extent of, etc., etc. This is written for people. So here, the author of this entry has given a little bit of a summary, and then they've given a little bit of an analysis, who it's written for, and how they're going to use it in their paper. Sorry for my crazy highlighting here. A useful starting point for writing this paper. So that would be an example of one person's annotations for a bibliographic entry. So why would you create an annotated bibliography? There's two primary audiences for this. That moment when your teacher mentions your research paper, the first is that you would be creating this really for yourself. To do your research paper in steps, to take away a little bit of this kind of screaming anxiety. So you're finding your research, then you're taking notes on it, then you're putting those notes together, typically in like an outline, an introduction, and then you're moving on to actually writing the paper. It can also help you to organize your thoughts before writing. When I was in college, I found this really, really useful. I would have all of these sources kind of all over the place, printed out or saved on my computer, and it's confusing, right, to know where I'm going to use a source and what's going to come next. So what are the strongest pieces of evidence from these sources? We talked about what strong evidence looked like, right? What are the things that are going to be the most convincing for your reader? What specifically do you want to include? What can you leave out? What order do you want to put these in? And then also to assess your research. Now, typically when I ask for an annotated bibliography, I want you to pick the sources that you intend on using and assess them. Is this going to be long enough, or is it way too long? If you're writing a 5-page paper and you have a source that's 70 pages long, you may not have time to read through that unless there's a specific chapter or section that you're going to use. Is it complex enough for you and your reader, or is it too complex? Is it kind of written at that peer-reviewed level for experts in, say, biochemistry, where really it might not be something that you can use? Is it recent? Is there anything I can actually use to support my points? So here is an example. This is from an actual student who allowed me to do this. They were writing a paper about the effects of alcohol, and they had these two sources in their annotated bibliography. So here is the first, the summary of this source. Vodka and the different brands of vodka that are bestsellers in the US. That's what this article was about. When it comes to cocktail making, few spirits are as versatile as vodka. So they have this quote, and then this fact: 74.1 million cases of vodka are sold, or were sold in 2019. So here's the thing. That's a very interesting statistic, but it doesn't connect at all to the idea of the negative or positive effects of alcohol, right? So there's kind of an interesting quote and a very interesting fact, but it doesn't really connect to their claim. So as a result, I had them find a different source, and this is what they found. This source discusses other negative health effects of alcohol, focusing on the skin. So they had a lot about like the liver, the brain, addiction, but not other health effects. So this was a much better source. Drinking can increase the risk of skin cancer, a fact I did not even know before. It dehydrates the skin, etc. That's a good quote. Whoops. So you'll notice with all of these too, they've shown where they have this in-text citation showing where they left it off here, but here we have one as well, what paragraph they found it in. Again, that's really for yourself, so that when you're writing, you can go back and very easily find that information. And sometimes this is what happens. You're assessing your sources. One is not going to work, and you can get rid of that and replace it with a different one. So why else are you going to create an annotated bibliography? That's me. Every day I sign this, you guys, that's me. Your bibliography worries me. For your instructor. So first, you are assessing your research, but your instructor is there to guide that process. So when I look at this, I'm asking, are your sources appropriate? Are they recent? Are they usable? Do I maybe know something that might work better for you? If you found something, say, from a library database, but it's very complex, maybe I know something that is a little bit more user-friendly. Or maybe you found something on a website that's kind of intended for younger people, like middle school, high school, and I want you to find something a little bit more complex. Or maybe I know that your source is only a page and a half long and it's not really going to give you enough to write about for your research paper. So it's really there to help, for me, to help assess your research and have a second set of eyes before you go to write. What happens when I don't give an annotated bibliography assignment is that people often choose research that really isn't going to work for them, and it's harder for them to organize it. It's harder for them to start writing. Another reason an instructor might ask you to create an annotated bib is to prevent plagiarism. So I want to see your sources before you go to write so that I know that you have done your own research. Giving you time and assistance, organizing your thoughts before writing, and checking your citation format before you turn in your essay. So that all you need to do after is take those citations, put them in alphabetical order, and you should be good to go. That is the final reason that I ask you to do this. So which source works best? Again, this is something that a student gave me. I don't want you, if you're in my class, you are not allowed to use Wikipedia for an actual source in your paper, and this is why. So here, this is from Alcoholism, from the Wikipedia article, and they have paraphrased this part that's kind of covered up here. Stereotypes of alcoholics involve stock characters, particularly Irish as heavy drinkers. Now, first of all, this is not a great paraphrase because they've still used Irish are heavy drinkers, that exact phrase. So the issue with Wikipedia is that it does not have an author. It does not have a date. A lot of the information is skewed, as you'll see here in a moment. And a lot of it also is plagiarized from other places. So here they have this depiction of people in Ireland being heavy drinkers. Well, when you actually, here's how you can use Wikipedia. Click here on the study. Now, already I can tell you that this is out of date. We are past 10 years on this, so I would not recommend using it. But the original source had this quote: Europeans are the world's top consumers of alcohol in the world. Heavy drinking is part of culture of Northern Europeans in particular. And then they went on to expressly talk about Ireland. But the fact is that this paraphrase from this thing on Wikipedia doesn't really match what the original actually has to say. This is saying that there's stereotypes, and this is saying, look, our studies have shown that, in fact, this is a big part of the culture, right? So if you're thinking about that, that's something that I would check as an instructor when you do an annotated bibliography. Is the source that you have the best one for your essay? But you can kind of do that on your own. And if you find something like that, catch it and get rid of it and do another entry that you think would work better. All right, so to recap, an annotated bibliography has a couple different parts. First, it has that citation, the bibliographic details of the text, who wrote it, where it was published, what the title is, what the date is, all of that. Then it typically would have a brief summary and then some kind of an analysis, either explaining it, talking about how it's going to connect to your claim, talking about where you're going to use it, who the author's audience is perhaps, or their tone of writing, if they've used ethos, pathos, or logos, those three pillars of argument, or maybe having a statement of usefulness. Here's the quote that I'm going to use, and here's where I'm going to use it, or this is why I think it would help convince my readers about my argument. So I hope that this has helped kind of clarify a little bit what annotated bibliographies are and why you might use them. They're not just for your instructor, they really are to help you in your writing so that it's not as overwhelming down the road. Thanks.